You are braver than you know. That's a quote I've always remembered and one that perfectly describes today's guest. Alex is a pre-vivor. She carries the BRCA1 gene mutation that increases her risk of breast and ovarian cancer by up to 80%. After facing her own life altering health changes, she's on a mission to change the conversation around menopause and empower women to demand better care, better research, and real solutions. Alex is a relentless advocate for women navigating perimenopause, surgical menopause, and medical gaslighting. Alex, we're really thrilled to have you here because I can tell this is going to be a very open, honest, heartfelt conversation coming from, I guess we often speak to medical experts, but coming from someone who's going through it, has been through something quite intense. I know we're going to get a lot of insights from you today, so thank you so much for joining us on the Aging Project.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Shelley. Very excited to be here.
A pre-vivor, now that's a term I hadn't heard before, but obviously you didn't know that you had BRCA1 and you hadn't had any experience of breast cancer. You got in before anything had taken hold.
Exactly. Yes. So it was actually my sister that was diagnosed with breast cancer at 33. And from that, they suggested that our family do some genetic testing. And we discovered that we all carry the BRCA1, BRCA1 gene mutation. So from there, it was obviously a bit of a whirlwind of decision making to be done, thinking about whether we'd be doing preventative surgeries, be it a mastectomy, reconstruction, hysterectomy, salpingectomy, whether HRT was on the cards, all these kinds of decisions that we were faced with. But my husband and I decided that we'd go hard or go home. And 6 weeks later, after my BRCA1 diagnosis, I decided to have a preventative mastectomy and reconstruction. So yeah, that was a difficult time for us, but I guess it was made I won't say easier, but I was more determined, I suppose, watching my sister going through her own breast cancer challenges with a young toddler and only at the age of 33 that we didn't really have much time to waste. So, off we went and we had the surgeries and then followed that with a preventative salpingectomy, which is a removal of the fallopian tubes at 37. And then we had the full bells and whistles, everything, the whole hysterectomy at 39. So that was to reduce my risk of ovarian cancer.
This has been a crazy journey, I imagine. When you say that your whole family got tested, other siblings or your mum, did you know that she carried this gene?
Exactly. So we didn't know that at the time. So it was my mum, my brother, my sister, and I. We all carried the gene mutation. So mum thinking that she carried this mutation, but she was, at the time that we found out about this diagnosis, she was in her 60s, and she said, well, I'm past it, girls. I'm not going to get breast cancer. I've already got through it. And we said, oh, I wouldn't be so sure, mum. Really your risk keeps increasing as you age. So we encouraged her to have her preventative mastectomy, as well. And luckily she agreed, because at the time of her preventative mastectomy, they actually tested the tissue after her surgery and she had breast cancer at the time and didn't even know.
Oh my goodness.
This knowledge of finding out about this gene mutation has really had such a profound impact on our family. Obviously, it guided my sister's treatment through her cancer diagnosis, because they cater the medication with your chemotherapy depending on the cause of your breast cancer. It helped my mum, because she was obviously already had breast cancer and didn't even know it. And it's obviously helped me prevent breast cancer, because I was able to have my mastectomy at 30 and avoid all of that. So really a blessing in disguise.
Absolutely, Alex. Had you even thought about breast cancer? I mean, we've all been involved in charity runs. We obviously know Pink Ribbon is such a big thing for all women, and now all Australians, I believe, are very, very aware of breast cancer. But had you even thought of it at 30? I mean, had it even crossed your mind?
Hadn't even crossed my mind. It probably should have, given that my grandmother had breast cancer. But really, she was in her 60s and 70s when she got breast cancer, so it really wasn't top of my mind. That just seemed like something that women in their 60s and 70s it could happen to, which it's true. I mean, 10%, of the population. So that just seemed like a normal, a normal thing that happened to older women. So definitely had not crossed my mind that this was something that we would be dealing with in our 30s.
So 6 weeks from finding out, you were then recovering from a double mastectomy. How did that decision even come about? Obviously, your husband played a huge part in that decision making, or was it even a decision to be made? It was just like, nope, that's what's happening. I'm not even
Yeah,
questioning it.
look, I mean, we went through the motions as a matter of course, but really, I think we had that instinct right from the start that, when you're watching your sister battling, you go, you know what? No, this is not something. If I will do whatever it takes to avoid cancer at all stakes. So, what have we got to do? Mastectomy, hysterectomy, the works. Let's go. There's, we don't need to. If I think a lot of people attest to this, that if you've ever seen someone battling through chemo, you will do everything that you can in your power to avoid that. It's just awful.
You mentioned in our chat that you had a bit of medical gaslighting happening. Was this people trying to talk you out of going through something as drastic as a double mastectomy at 30?
I definitely had that. I actually had my GP at the time who, look, I think she's a little bit wiser now, but at the time it wasn't the done thing because it was about at the same time as the Angelina Jolie was about to, that story was about to break. And her wording to me was, "Are you telling me you're considering removing healthy breast tissue?" And I said, yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking of doing. She said, "I think you need to have your head checked." So yeah, so that was there was definitely not a lot of support at that time for these kind of drastic surgeries, but I guess that encouraged me to do my own research and really put me on this course of taking care of my own health and navigating my own health and being my own best health advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from that point on, I invested heavily in research, data, looking at medical journals, listening to podcasts, gathering as much intel and information and data as I could to make my own decisions for myself. So I think that has shown through, I mean, it's been 10 years now since this all started. So I think at every step of the way, that's how I've played it. Really I've found a lot of resistance to at each stage with the support and the care that is offered by GPs and by medical experts. So I've really had to take matters into my own hands.
Imagine this, unlocking your genetic blueprint with insights from over 200 healthy aging genes, pinpointing your unique SNPs and potential red flags, understanding what your body needs to thrive and where it may need some extra support. No more guesswork, no more random supplements, one-off blood tests, or one-size-fits-all advice. For the first time in history, we have access to the power of genetic testing, something no generation before us has had. This information could change everything. Join our free DNA webinar and you'll get our Stay Well scorecard jam-packed with the markers that we want you to track every year, starting now. Friends, know your genes, own your health. Let's learn to thrive together. Visit theagingproject.com to register, and I'll see you there. 10 years on, and I know there has been huge advances, not just in gene testing, obviously, but in the procedures that happen. And I'm hoping that women now, as you have done, take it upon themselves to, I guess, write their own health journey. At the time, though, I imagine it wasn't just physical challenges. There would have been huge emotional challenges. And as we mentioned, getting over those medical challenges and getting through the system. Once they knew you had BRCA, did you find that there was a lot more support once you actually underwent the procedure?
Only with time, I think, and as the data is catching up, there was a little bit more support. But I did definitely find some hurdles when it came to discussing my future health after I was to have my hysterectomy. So in the lead up to having my hysterectomy, I just started doing a lot of research about what my options were post hysterectomy for long-term health. Obviously, removing your ovaries comes with a lot of other risks. So, it's really a cost versus benefit analysis for me. I might be removing my ovaries and reducing my risk of ovarian cancer, but really what's at what cost?
Mm-hmm.
And that cost is obviously in early menopause comes with an increased risk of osteoporosis and heart disease and dementia and really all-cause mortality overall, really. So it was deciding the trauma of really finding that sweet spot where I could hold on to my ovaries for as long as I could to hold off menopause, but I wasn't increasing my risk of ovarian cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of research into how early was too early to have my ovaries removed and what could I do to mitigate the risks of an early menopause. So, for example, hormone replacement therapy or HRT was the obvious choice. But I had a lot of pushback from GPs. I even had one GP said to me, "Oh, well, you can't do HRT. It increases your risk of breast cancer, and you already have an increased risk of breast cancer." And I said to her, "Well, actually, I don't have breasts." And she just couldn't get her head around it. So that's when you really feel alone, when you think, right, okay, I'm out here on my own making these decisions because they just don't get it. They don't understand that the risk of me not using HRT, after going through medical surgical menopause, are potentially more drastic than even the ovarian cancer that I was risking. So, yeah, I guess the challenges I felt was feeling quite alone, feeling unsupported, and taking on this massive weight of decision making by myself because I didn't have a GP that could support me. So, yeah, sorry.
And that's one thing, isn't it? You've got the surgeons that obviously do what they do, but that aftercare or that pre-care in the system didn't seem to be there at the time. You can have the operation, but who's holding my hand after that and
Well,
guiding me through what comes next?
absolutely. And the surgeons are great at surgery.
Surgery.
And when I asked my surgeon, and she's a great surgeon, I said, "What are my options after?" She said, "Well, I'll give you a script for HRT, and then you see your GP or you see an endocrinologist." I said, "So let me get this straight. I want to make sure I know that there's going to be a bit of trial and error with this HRT, and what dose works for me might not work for someone else, or vice versa. So whilst I'm working out what my right dose is and going through all the sort of trial and error of HRT and dosages, I'm meant to see an endocrinologist at $200, $300, $400 a pop to help me manage that for how long? Because menopause is for life. So is this for the rest of my life that I'm seeing an endocrinologist every few months? That's ludicrous. It should be a GP guiding me through this." So I started reaching out to other sources. Obviously I love my research. I'm reading my medical journals. I found some brilliant podcasts, Dr. Louise Newsom, for example, and she really, her podcast and her eloquent, beautifully delivered messages really gave me the strength I needed to make these decisions. And then I spent 12 months trying to find a GP that was across the level of HRT that I knew, and I really struggled to find that. Most doctors would say there's an increased risk of breast cancer, you can't do it, or they'd say, "Look, you know what, have your surgery and then see how you go." And I'm like, well, I'm not going to see how I go because I'm not just planning on doing HRT to treat my symptoms, the hot flushes or the brain fog or, the anxiety or all those things that come with menopause. I'm not just treating symptoms. I'm planning on doing HRT to maintain my health for life, to optimize my health for life. I want to reduce my risk of osteoporosis. I want to reduce my risk of heart disease, of dementia. I want to have, I want to be guided through these health challenges for life. And I think HRT is the best option to prevent disease for me.
It's so interesting, isn't it? If HRT wasn't connected specifically to perimenopause or menopause, if you just said, I have something that you can take in whatever form it comes in that's going to help with all of those things, with anxiety, with depression, with weight, with osteoporosis, with heart health, everyone would jump onto it straight away. The fact that it seems to be attached to this stigma that nobody really understands, the perimenopause,
Absolutely.
menopause journey, it comes with its own little baggage, really, doesn't it?
I couldn't agree more. And look, you can't help but think is, as you said, if this wasn't related to menopause, if it was related to the entire population and not just 51% of the population, if it was related to men as well, I feel like we would have a different view on this, which
Mhm.
is, it's just the world we're living in still, but times are changing.
Mm.
So, look, I don't know, Shelley, if you've heard about the promise from the current government that's happened in the last 2 days.
No, fill me
No,
in.
they have. It's huge news for women and women's health in Australia. They have promised $500 million, $500 million for women's healthcare, with designated funding specifically for menopause care, including supporting GP consultations around menopause. So there's going to be rebates on that, and support putting some forms of HRT on the PBS, like estrogel, which is the dermal one that you rub on your skin, and better education for GPs. So there's definitely a changing attitude, and there's definitely a turning of the tide, which is really exciting news. So
Over at You Must Try It, we've discovered so many fabulous low-tox skin and makeup options. Many of our guests have spoken about reducing our overall toxic load, so that has become a huge priority for me. I've slowly moved to low-tox products, and You Must Try It have made it really easy. We only stock low-tox products we've tried, tested, and love at youmusttryit.com. So we have done the research for you. If you haven't visited us already, please stop by at youmusttryit.com for 10% off your first order. Well, Alex, you're a huge voice in this space, and I know you finally met your unicorn. You finally came across a GP, Dr. Cashel, who obviously was completely across menopause, perimenopause, hormones. It's amazing that it took you 12 months on a
and
on a search to find someone like Dr. Cashel. But now the two of you, along with your team, you're making huge waves in this area. So congratulations to you, because I'm sure you had a huge impact on what has happened in the last couple of days.
Oh, thank you. Look, I think definitely Dr. Cashel has. Kerry presented at the Senate inquiry and had a huge impact there. And like you said, yeah, I guess we have a shared frustration with the menopause care that exists, and over that shared frustration, we really bonded, and we decided that there was something that needed to be done. So we decided it was in a consultation. She said, you have event spaces, don't you? I said, I do. And she said, and I have knowledge, and we've both got this brilliant desire to help women. So let's do something together. So we started with some little small events on the northern beaches of Sydney, just trying to help as many women as we can, with educating them with perimenopause and menopause and HRT and other options, and how they can manage this. I don't like to say transition. I want to say transition because it fits in there, but really menopause is for life. So I guess it's a transition to the rest of your life, really.
Which is
So
such an exciting part that we're embracing, and we're feeling empowered, and we're feeling positive, and we're ready for it, aren't we, here at the Aging
we're
Project?
so here for it. We're so here for it. Oh, look, I mean, there's good and bad about all these transitions. Like for me, having surgical menopause is a little bit different to the perimenopause, and that comes with its own challenges, because perimenopause, which is about 10 years before can happen about 10 years before your last period. So I'm sort of going off piste here, but in Australia, the definition of menopause, or the age of menopause, average age of menopause is 51. So you can be expected to feel menopausal symptoms 10 years before that point. So really you're perimenopausal from 41, and that period of time can be quite challenging. The brain is very sensitive to hormonal changes, and that's really when you're feeling a lot of your emotional and mental challenges, your anxiety, your brain fog, your memory loss, and you're feeling a lot of the really extreme menopause symptoms. So I feel like that is quite different. This is a little bit different to what I'm experiencing in surgical menopause. So it's nice to be able to represent women across the full spectrum and to give this information to everyone that might be affected by menopause, no matter what, whether it's surgical or it's perimenopause or it's full menopause. In some ways, I should tell you a funny story about my son that happened to me the other day. It was about menopausal symptoms. He said it's obviously been, as you know, the longest school holidays ever. It's like an 8-week school holiday, and I think every parent can sympathise with that feeling of frustration in the last week and just wanting the schools to go back. But we were in the car and the kids were banging on about song requests and, oh, I want this one and I want that one. And I said, guys, you just need to give me, and my son said, an estrogen.
Yes.
Oh my God, I can't believe that. Oh my God. And I thought, oh gosh, that is so different. I thought, actually, he's right.
Yeah.
I've forgotten to have it today, and I had. And
Oh,
so
no.
so I had actually. So I guess that is maybe something that I appreciate more in my situation, being surgical menopause, that I don't have any hormonal
Question
level.
about where you sit on
Symptoms.
the spectrum.
There's no, a lot of women through their period like, can I do some estrogen? Can I do a little bit? Or I don't know if I need it yet. I know I'm 100%. I need that estrogen. My son knows 100% I need that estrogen. He's only 7.
What a great partner he's going to make down the track.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
Yeah.
he's a good supporter. He is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, I think hopefully Kerry and Crystal and I've roped in a good friend of mine, Crystal Barter. She's also a BRCA girly or BRCA girly. We met through the journey. And so the three of us together have come together to really try and support women and empower women and educate GPs. That would be the ultimate goal, and educate women so that we can create this revolution and change the current system. So, hopefully these so hot right now events will have a big impact.
Oh, that's right. We'll get to the events in a minute. I just want to back up to that idea of, I guess, being in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And this idea that, yes, for that 13 years before you hit menopause, which is,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, classified as a year since you had your last cycle.
Exactly.
Nobody really knows if they're in it. Nobody knows if it's, if that hot flush was just this wave of anger, the first one, I guess, until just complete frustration. Nobody's really sure. And everybody's symptoms and signs are so varied and so different that you could be 6 to 8 to 10 years in before you go, oh, that's right, I'm almost 50. Shit, this is what it this is what it is.
Exactly. Totally.
That idea that you knew, and I guess having your hysterectomy at 39, you weren't probably, I mean, obviously with young kids, you would have been feeling all sorts of other things. At that time, you'd have gone, right, okay, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be in menopause.
Correct.
So my journey is starting from that point on. And your HRT, as you say, your doses could have changed a little bit. How much do I need? What do I want from this? And I guess that's the battle that anyone who's trying it is going through, because again, even if you get a GP that knows a lot about this space, everybody is different. So how much do I need? Do you, and I know you're not a medical expert, but you are, I believe, an expert in menopause. Yeah, absolutely. Can you experiment with HRT?
I do. So that's my answer is I do. I think it's within reason, don't be scared, because ultimately each month your levels vary. So why shouldn't the amount that you're putting on vary?
Mm-hmm.
It's really not that scary. I think if you're staying within For example, as an example, so let's take the gel, for example. Most women will start on one pump of the gel, or they'll start on one sachet if they're doing sachets. That is a very minimal amount. I have 3 sachets a day. So it is within reason for you to, if you're not feeling like it's not, I feel like I'm doing this HRT and it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and I'm really not noticing any differences. I personally think it's within reason for you to go, okay, I'm doing one pump. Why don't I do 1.5, or 1 in the morning, 1 at night, or 1 sachet in the morning and 1 sachet at night? You can try that. And guess what? After 24 hours, those hormones are out of your body.
But it is true, isn't it? It is going to be a journey for everyone. It is going to take a little bit of trial and error. And like life, what worked yesterday might not necessarily work tomorrow.
I really was keen to do and to have my testosterone, because I feel like I've always been quite a fit, active person. I'm quite gung-ho. I kind of knew, I was like, I feel like I probably have quite a high testosterone level. My husband often tells me, he's like, coming on a bit strong. So I feel like I probably have quite a high testosterone level. So I made a point when I saw the first GP, I said, I really want testosterone as part of my HRT package. And she said, oh, let's just see how you go. And I was like, no, I want it. And there's no reason why I can't have it. I go from, day prior to surgery with testosterone. In fact, women produce 3 times more testosterone than they do estrogen. From day before my surgery to having testosterone, you're telling me I have to go the day after to having no testosterone. That's not fair. So anyway, I found Kerry, and Kerry very, great. I was very grateful that she did give me the testosterone, and I thought I went a bit gung-ho, and I experimented with the testosterone. I started doing it every day, which is probably a little bit too much. But it was obvious within 2 weeks it was too much, because my husband was like, okay, your sex drive has overtaken my limits. You really need to pull back.
This is great to hear, though, because again, they will. You'll go your estradiol or your sachets, you do your progesterone.
Yeah,
Where's
exactly.
the testosterone?
The testosterone. So it's a cream, and you just put it on your leg, and it's wonderful. And Australia is the only country in the world that has women's testosterone. Testosterone made just for women in a beautiful white and pink tube.
I was lucky enough to interview Carolyn Stanbury. She's one of the housewives of Dubai. She is awesome. I must say, I'm a little bit reserved when I talk about these things, but she was just into it. She's saying, I've had this, I've done this, I take this. Get onto it, girls. This is the way we need to go. She says, I've never felt better. I've never looked better. I've never been interested in my partner so much. Like, this is the go. And it's funny because, again, walking into your GP and saying, hey, how about you give me a little bit of testosterone in the mix? I think a lot of us would be a little bit shy about that, but you're giving us the green light. I love it.
Well, look, I mean, at the moment, you have to tell your GP that you have a lowered sex drive to be prescribed testosterone. I knew I needed to say that. I didn't want the testosterone for that reason, but there's lots of other perks that personally I have found from having testosterone, which is a huge, I've peeled it back and I only do it 2-3 times a week. But if I forget, I really notice a big impact in my memory and my focus and my motivation. Huge impact. So I found finally the right balance, which is 2 to 3 times a week for me, and the right balance for my husband. So
I'm sure he's more than happy.
Yes, he's very pleased with that. So definitely ask the testosterone and give it a go. And honestly, don't be afraid, because if you find it's not for you, then you can stop taking it and it's out of your system. It's not that terrifying. And surely having trial and error, a lot of women that are going through peri and menopause go to their doctor with these feelings of anxiety or panic or heart palpitations at night, and often their GP will prescribe them SSRIs or antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. And I say to some of my girlfriends that are considering going down this path, surely it is less of an upheaval to your body and your system to try some estrogen and try a little bit of HRT for a month or two, see if that has an improvement. And then if you still need to go down the pharmaceutical route, or I mean, they're all pharmaceutical, but if you need to go down SSRIs and drugs, absolutely, there's no shame. But I mean, the hormones are
pretty good.
They're pretty good, and they're going to have less of a toll on your body than these medical drugs. So maybe it's worth trying. Why not?
Alex, all of this stuff has been so closed doors, and I can only sort of explain that our generation, our age group of women, are like, no, bugger it. I want to know some more information. And it's easy to understand. Our grandmothers were brought up in a time where you obviously didn't discuss anything like this. So then our mothers were already on the back foot and a little bit awkward and uncomfortable. And I know, from my mum's friends, probably haven't admitted to their own children. Perhaps they've discussed it in their own little women's circles about perimenopause and menopause. It was a midlife crisis, or, I'm getting a divorce, whatever it might be. It was never really, I guess, attuned to what we were going through in midlife. And then here we come, a generation that has been told that we can do anything, achieve anything, and women, luckily, thanks to our four women, have been given the strength to talk about things like this in public without blushing and without being shy and without being embarrassed. I'm hoping that it is just our generation that has had to suffer a little bit, but we're going to be the ones that reap our own rewards. And then our kids and our kids' kids are never going to have to worry about this particular phase in life. And hopefully they do, like we're learning to now, really embrace it as an empowering. And yes, it's a life change, but it doesn't have to be for the worse. It can absolutely be for the better and the stronger. And we've got another 50 years to go. So we've got to make the most of it.
Oh, you couldn't have said it better, really. I mean, menopause isn't it is a moment in time, but it's the rest of your life. So really, we need to get behind each other and support each other, and encourage each other to find the answers, because ultimately we've got the rest of our lives to make the most of our health, and we really need to be optimizing those health outcomes. Like they say, the heart attack at 60 starts in your 40s, and the osteoporosis in your 80s starts in your 50s. So, it's now is the time when we need to be addressing these health concerns, and now is the time when we can have the biggest impact for our lifelong health implications.
That is it. I know that we are now in charge. We're huge advocates here at the Aging Project of taking charge of your own health. And if that means asking your GP rather than being told by your GP, I think that's a really strong message that you've delivered here today. We can educate ourselves. There is a little bit of that Google doctor, but that's when you sit down and you have an adult conversation with your doctor about what's working for you and what's not. Alex, I know so many people are going to want to slide into your DMs to ask more about what you've been through and your medical procedures. And I'm sure you're going to be more than happy for that. So we're going to put all your details there online. If anyone would like to join the So Hot Right Now events coming up, make sure you Google those. You can have a look at them too at alexisaac.com.au. We'll put up the social links. It's all there. You are a champion in so many ways, Alex. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you, Shelley. Lovely to talk to you too. Thanks for having me.
As always, the Aging Project podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes. Always seek medical advice from a qualified practitioner.